Alright, y'all, so today we're going to be reacting to Film Theory, How to Survive Final Destination by the Film Theorist. I went to the movies and watched this yesterday. I didn't like this movie at all. Like, I don't know if it was the plot that I didn't like, or I just honestly felt like they were dragging it out, and it was just like, okay, like, at this point, wrap this shit up. Just wrap the movie up. I'm over it. I was over it. I think this might be one of the worst ones I've seen out of all the Final Destinations. It wasn't given. And before I even watched the movie, people online said it was trash, but I still wanted to go see it. I wanted to see it for myself. I went to the movies with my cousin and watched it. And yeah, I didn't like it. I feel like the only good thing out of the movie was the I forgot what the freaking black man was called. I forgot what his name was. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He passed away like around sometime last year. He definitely left his mark. I really like the message he sent out about like enjoying life and everything like that. I feel like that was the only good thing out of the movie. Other than that, I did not like this movie. So, anywho, we're gonna go ahead and dive on in. Let's watch.
How can you possibly beat death in a franchise like Final Destination?
And of course, everybody died.
And death coming to take what he's owed. How can you cheat it? How can you outrun it? Well, after diving deep into the lore of this
predictable. I already knew everybody was gonna die.
Out, loyal theorists. So. But you might not like the answer.
This movie was trash. I'm sorry.
Hello internets, welcome to Film Theory, the show that's just dying to talk about some horror. Today we are finally talking about one of my favorite horror franchises, Final Destination. And I was actually a bit surprised
they knew let this franchise go.
The release of the newest film, Bloodlines,
just let it go.
A decade, now was the perfect time. So if you don't know, Final Destination is a classic horror film franchise from the mid-aughts. This really leaned into a lot of the gore and body horror that other franchises would pick up and make their whole shtick later on. I'm just saying, Final Destination walked so Saw could run directly into a bear trap. The whole premise goes
I don't like
this.
Saw either.
A group of people are minding their own business, going about their lives as normal, until one of them has some sort of psychic vision, a premonition of a horrible tragedy about to happen.
Like this recent one, I feel like this was the worst out of all of them. Like,
using that foresight, are able to save everyone from an early grave. Well, at least for a little bit. See, death in these movies
still mad at that
just
girl
a
died.
concept. It's a supernatural entity, and if you escape it, well, the Grim Reaper comes for all of us, and death starts picking off the survivors who were supposed to die one by one in increasingly hilarious and unlikely ways unfit for YouTube. Basically, this is just an excuse for the writers to get creative with how they kill these guys with Rube Goldberg machines of brutality, and they get really out there and really scarring. I'll just tell you, Final Destination is single-handedly the reason an entire generation of millennials like myself refuse to drive behind a logging truck. Also, fun fact, but they started advertising the new film on the back of logging trucks, and it's just genius. Anyway, this is a series all about its characters trying to beat death, to outsmart and outrun their own mortality before death can scratch their name off its list. So, naturally, they got my theorist cogs a-turning. If we dive into the lore of the Final Destination universe, is there a way to actually beat it? Is there a way to cheat death and keep on living, slipping through the Reaper's bony fingers before it can strangle you? I mean, they give us a few options in the movies themselves, but basically none of the main characters in these movies have a happy ending. Would we have any hope? Well, I went back and watched all of the movies, theorists, and dug deep into this universe to try to find an answer, looking at all the rules that Final Destination lays out, and I've done it. Beyond what the movies directly tell us, I found a way to beat death and live out the rest of your days. But, well, let's just say it might not be the way you want to live. So prepare your over-the-top chain reactions, loyal theorists, as we try to beat Final Destination. So there are a few things we need to know before we can really figure out how to beat death, and that's how exactly this whole thing operates. See, there are a few rules that death seems to follow here, which gives us a good starting point. First of all, each of these films start when someone gets a premonition about an oncoming disaster, usually seeing themselves and multiple other people dying horribly in some terrible accident. The person with that premonition then thwarts that disaster, saving all of their lives. So just for the sake of explanation here, let's say that myself and the other theorist hosts were supposed to die horribly in a giant Freddy Fazbear animatronic related disaster.
I think the first
but
and
I
second
managed to
Final
stop it before
Destinations
it
are the
happens
best
because
ones.
I got a vision. That vision? That you would be subscribing to Film Theory, so go on, help a brother out. Anyway, Death
I guess the
wants to
third
collect
one's
the
okay
lives
too. I
of
don't
its
really care
owed,
for
and the
the
survivors become collectively
fourth
known
and
as
fifth
Death's
one.
List. Well, at least by the fandom. Usually,
Or the
Death will
recent
try to
one.
kill the survivors in the order that they would have died in that initial disaster. So let's say that this Freddy Fazbear accident was supposed to kill Tom, then Ash, then me, then Santi, and then Amy. Death would then come for us in that order. However, if someone or something intervenes and saves one of us, if one of us manages to survive one of Death's crazy chain reactions, it skips us and then goes to the next person in line. Well, at least until it gets to the bottom of the list. Then it wraps back around to the first person again to take them out. You also can't try to break this chain and beat Death by taking things into your own hands, if you catch my drift. Death will literally not allow you to die by your own hand until it comes for you. And I gotta say, sometimes it feels like life's got you stuck in one of these Final Destination Rube Goldberg machines, leaving you confused about what to do with your career. Well, truth is, opportunities rarely just appear out of thin air. But no, a lot of people who move ahead create those opportunities. They plan and take action. And Strawberry.me, the sponsor of today's theory, can help you do both. Maybe you're just now let's head back into Final Destination and cheating Death. So with all of those rules in mind, how are we going to avoid this terrible fate? Well, your
You
first
can't
thought
avoid
might
it,
be,
baby. You
can
just
I
did.
death-proof my life? Can I do something to take all of the danger out of everyday objects and keep myself away from Death's design? And that's a great thought. In the fandom, this is known
The
as
movie
bringing
already
yourself
told
to
you
a
how to defeat it.
stalemate
Just stay
with
locked
death.
up in a
And
room
it
somewhere.
makes sense. Being
Like the
vigilant and trying
old
to
lady
death-proof
did.
your controlled space is a good start. Though you
She
may
died
come
as soon
to
as she
realize
stepped
just how many
outside.
things in your everyday life can kill you. Just look around your room and you can probably find a dozen or more potentially deadly scenarios, enough to drive you to a paranoid
Look around my
insanity.
room too.
Nice one. I overlooked it.
Like, listen, we have literal, actual decades worth of research and studies shining a light on the commonplace dangers of everyday life. For example, one study showed that in the US, there are over 100,000 bathroom-related injuries per year, many of which sadly result in death. This is stuff like people slipping and falling.
Oh my God, I remember I
on the
was
counter,
in the
that
bathroom.
sort of thing.
I was in the
Just think of how
bathtub
many
one time and I
people the Reaper's
slipped
taken
and
out,
my
making them stuck
back
in the
hit
tub.
the like.
And then there are gas stoves.
The thing where the,
These can be
I can't even
surprisingly
talk.
dangerous.
Y'all know
Not just
what the
because
water
they
come
might
out
burst into
of.
flames, knock over a
When I
chair,
tell
and
you, I
drive a
was-
knife into your heart. No, instead, using these stoves can lead to a byproduct called nitrogen dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide could be responsible for
I'm
up to
talking about that. It's so
19,000
bad.
premature deaths in the United States and 40,000 in the European Union and UK. We humans are very fragile little creatures, and the threat of death is lurking everywhere. That being said, if you are desperate and you really want to survive, this one might be worth
Lock
a shot.
yourself in
We
a
see
room.
Alex from Final Destination 1 actually
That's how
tried
you
this.
beat it.
He goes out to a cabin and death proofs the place, and ultimately, he's safe there. Well, until he realizes that he actually wasn't the next on Death's list, so all that prep was for naught. But that doesn't mean this can't work. Later, Alex's partner Clear checks herself into a mental institute complete with padded walls and no real way
If she
to be
only
harmed.
died when she
And
stepped out,
surprisingly,
like, just
this
lock
does
yourself
actually work
somewhere in
for
the room.
Clear. She's kept out of Death's reach. And likewise, in the
And
new
then
Final
as soon as she
Destination
stepped out, she
Bloodlines,
died in the
Iris is able to
hospital.
survive for
Blew up.
decades by holding herself up in a similarly
Like,
death-proof
her too.
cabin. So, okay,
As soon as she
that
stepped
works.
outside,
Here we
she
go,
died.
thanks. Well, maybe not, because this does come with a couple of huge drawbacks. Firstly, you can't make any mistakes. You can't slip up and let your guard down at all.
Yeah.
Because when you do, death will take advantage of that and kill you. We see this in
Yeah, you gotta
Bloodlines when Iris
stay on
leaves
your
the cabin
toes like this
briefly to
lady,
talk to
right?
her
Yeah,
granddaughter
her,
and
like
is killed
her.
by a freak weather vane accident. And secondly, can we actually call this living? You can't do anything. You can't go out, can't have fun, can't bring anything that could be even remotely
Yeah.
dangerous close to your person.
It's
In
like
Clear's
either
case,
way,
she's
you-
literally
I feel like
trapped
either
in a
way, you
padded
lost,
cell.
like-
That doesn't sound like a life worth leading, and I don't know if
Yeah.
we can call this
Either way, you
stalemate a
lost.
way to defeat death. But maybe the trick isn't to look out for every threat, but instead to look out for the signs. One of the stranger developments in this series is that death apparently believes in fair play. Yeah, it'll often signal
But
what
who
deadly
wants to
moves
live
it's
like
going
that?
to make
Always
in
gotta, you
advance.
always gotta
Give
watch
its
your
victims a
back
fighting
and
chance.
look for the
This
signs so
actually
you
happens
don't don't die.
in the
Who wants to
series.
live like
In the
that?
first movie, the main protagonist Alex sees a reflection of a bus before a classmate gets hit by one, and the reflection of a train before another gets killed by it. Death literally spells out where this guy will get hit and killed, while another sees a shadow that looks like what will end up killing another victim in this movie.
I think I see a man with hooks. Is that a sign?
And Final Destination 3 takes this a step further, where death may base your demise off your final photograph.
Oh, this the
if you
roller
spot some
coaster
signs and
one.
your gut says they're dangerous, that may increase your chances.
Wait,
of
I like the
dodging
third
death,
one too. I'm
at
lying.
least for a little bit.
I like
Though,
the Final
just as a
Destination
quick
3 too.
aside, all of this might be
4
death
and 5.
just acting like a big troll. Like, I mean, think
Yeah.
about this. Is death bound by some, like, cosmic rules where it has to warn and give its victims a chance to change their fate? It doesn't really seem to make any sense because it just kind of restarts if someone thwarts their death. And the photographs being the templates for their death just seems like really jokey and trolly in a way that I just gotta respect. And one of the characters in this franchise even speculates that all of the clues and warnings was just death setting them up the whole time, leading them to the situations where they die exactly like it wanted.
What if we didn't change anything? What if us being here right now was the plan from the beginning?
They tried to come with all
Exactly,
these
just like
theories and they
playing with
still
this food,
died.
so to speak. Anyway, okay, what else can we try? Well, Final Destination 2
You can't do
proposed another
anything,
way to
baby. You
shake
still
death
gonna
off your
die.
tail. It was suggested that bringing a new life into the world will force death to rewrite its plan, hopefully letting all of the victims off the hook.
I mean, that other girl.
Can defeat death.
The survivors in this
R.I.P.
movie end
to
up
him.
trying to pull this off by having one of them briefly drown before being revived in a hospital.
Hey, we did it. Thanks to you.
Yep, she survived.
And this method is again put forward as a solution in Final Destination Bloodlines.
Was she the only one that survived out of all the
was revived
movies?
here, so why
I'm trying to
isn't this
remember
one a
right.
slam dunk? Why shouldn't the survivors be teaming up to off each other and then revive them immediately?
I think
well,
she was.
for a few reasons. First, we see in Bloodlines that this has a ton of opportunity to go wrong, and when it does, it goes really
I'm sorry, I did
wrong.
not like
the
this
characters
movie.
still die in incredibly gruesome
They was
ways,
dragging
maybe
it.
even
The
more
pl- I don't
painfully
know
than
what it
if
is.
you
I just
try
didn't
anything
like
at all.
it.
Do
They
you
was
really
dragging the
want to
plot
take that
out.
risk? Again, they point this out in Bloodlines. When you mess with death and lose, it gets messy. Secondly, even though they do lay this out as a method for survival in the movies, despite what Bloodworth says here in Bloodlines, I'm skeptical that it would actually work at all. See, at the end of Final Destination 2, after the characters have supposedly beaten death and rewritten its plan, it's revealed that there was another character who survived that initial disaster in the film. This character is then dramatically killed in a barbecue grill
Oh,
explosion,
yeah.
despite death having already been beaten. So it doesn't seem like this whole drowning and then resuscitation method worked at all. If the chain has been broken, everyone in the
I mean,
chain
but it
from
never
that
said that
disaster
she died in the
should be
movie
safe
though.
now,
So like,
shouldn't they?
I
Plus,
feel like
in the thrill ride
no,
edition
she
of
survived. I
Final
don't care what
Destination
nobody
3
say.
DVD, there's an additional scene in an alternate version of the
Baby,
movie.
she
We
didn't
see in a
die.
newspaper article that these survivors from Final Destination 2 who cheated death were then later killed in a wood chipper accident. So
Oh.
their little stunt to
Never
die
mind. I
and
don't
come back
remember
to
that
life
part.
didn't mean diddly squat to
Okay,
death.
never mind.
I wondered
Never
if they
mind.
sort of misinterpreted the meaning here. Like, what if new life was a bit more literal? Maybe what these characters should have done was have a baby. Like, I
Maybe
was
they-
thinking
yeah,
that
maybe they did it
definitely
wrong.
has
I don't
Thomas'
know.
new life that would mess up
I
Death's
literally
design
forgot
and force
about
a
that.
reset. This was actually a big plot point in Final Destination 2, where the main characters think that one of the survivors is a pregnant woman.
I
They
don't
successfully
remember
help
that.
give birth,
And I
which they
recently
think
watched
will
this
reset
movie too.
everything, but
I
then
forgot
realized
about
that. The
that.
woman was never actually supposed to die in the first place, so she wasn't part of the chain.
Maybe they did it
Does
wrong.
that mean that giving birth, creating life, would actually defeat death? This was actually an alternate ending for the original film. Clear and Alex have a child, and the remaining survivors are able to beat death because of it. And hey, if we had made this theory like 3 years ago, or even 2, maybe even just 1, this could have been the answer. But it still doesn't work. We see some survivors in the latest film, Final Destination Bloodlines, actually survive long enough to start families. But all having kids did was put a target on their backs too. Yep, apparently they were never supposed to exist in the first place, and Death wants to take back those lives to bring balance to the scale.
this point-
Reaper eventually comes for the original survivors too. Plus, other canon works show that having a kid doesn't reset the clock at all. Death intended to kill a woman in childbirth in one of the Final Destination books, because of course there are
They
Final
got
Destination
books?
And just to
I
wrap
did not
everything
know
up
that.
here, though that alternate ending for Final Destination 1 with the baby defeating death was something the filmmakers considered, unlike other extra material outside of the main movies, like that part of the Final Destination 3 DVD, we see in future films that this ending was entirely
I didn't even know there were
non-canon.
different
Like,
endings.
Clear does not have a baby in Final Destination 2 at all. So we've tried so much already. We've tried looking looking for the signs. We've tried creating new life.
You just
Tried
gonna die.
decorating
Like,
our house,
you can't
but
beat
is
it.
that even living? Is there anything else we can come up with to try to beat death here? Well, there is one way to effectively defeat death, established back in Final Destination 5
All right,
and
let's
again
hear
brought
it.
up in Bloodlines. One way to really win out here. See, if you're marked for death, but then kill someone before their time, you get the amount of time that they would have lived added onto your lifespan. And this doesn't actually even have to explicitly be murder, which is probably where your mind went first. No, instead,
Right.
if you cause the accidental death of someone, that also counts. In Final Destination 5, one of the characters mistakenly causes a coworker to be killed in an accident at the factory they work at, and that ends up adding to his own lifespan. The one big drawback to this method, however, well, other than the fact that someone else has to die for it to work, you won't be sure just how much more life
So did he end
someone
up-
has,
I don't
and thus how
remember,
much more
like-
time is going to be tacked onto your lifespan. This is actually a plot point in Final
So he
Destination
ended up
5. The time inherited
surviving?
from the people killed
I really
doesn't
don't
actually
remember.
end up being
I'm
that
sorry,
much.
I
For
don't
example,
remember.
that coworker who was killed, he had an undiagnosed medical issue that meant that he only had a couple more weeks to live.
I mean, he was gonna die
leading to an
anyway,
abrupt
so.
demise of the guy that inherited the short lifespan later on in the movie. But in theory, in Final Destination theory, if you want to stay alive and keep yourself at the bottom of death's list, all a person can really do is keep on killing just to keep on living. And based on the rules set up here, you could become a serial killer and keep getting more and more life by taking
That's
others.
not-
I mean, potentially you could even end up living forever with that. Kind of weird to think about, but it is what it is. Maybe that'll be a premise of Final Destination 7. At first,
Oh
I
my
thought that
God,
this was a
please don't
poetic,
make another one.
Tragic ending to this theory, right? Like, to beat death, you more or less have to become death, stealing people's lives in a desperate attempt
Right.
to extend your own. But believe it or not, the extra little twist here that takes this beyond what the movies lay out, even this seems to be part of Death's design. Remember how I joked earlier about the Final Destination books? Well,
I
they're
did
all
not know they
canon to the
had
universe,
books.
and in one of them, Final Destination Looks Could Kill, the main character literally makes a deal with death to extend their own life. And the terms of that deal, they start killing other survivors for death.
I did not know
survive
they had
themselves.
books.
In a way, yes, they're adding their victims' lifespans to their own, but it's all at the whim of death itself. The moment that character hesitates, that they refuse to take a life for death, death comes for them instead. And really, death is the great equalizer, isn't it? We're all gonna have to face our mortality in the end. Even the characters that end up surviving in this series by exploiting the loopholes we
Wow.
talked about here, well, they end up terminally ill. Death comes for them, but it's just more patient about it. So sure, if you're in the Final Destination universe and want to extend the precious hours
So
you
just
have
kill
left,
people?
go ahead and go out and murder.
So
Lose
you
all
just-
of your humanity and become death
Right.
yourself, if you think it's worth it. But
Oh,
to death,
shoot.
you're still just a plaything on your way to your final destination. It really takes the whole idea of if you can't beat them, join them to the next level. But
That's
hey,
literally the-
that's just a theory. A film theory.
No.
And cut. Up next on Film Theory.
Okay, so basically to defeat death, you just gotta kill people. Like, like there's really no beating this. It's like, yeah, if you can't beat them, join them. But like, at what cost? Oh, I don't know. I say at what cost, but I mean, I guess you get more years added to your life, but you're gonna have to live with the fact that you're literally killing people to survive. So it's like, did you really beat death? No. So either way, this is still a loss. Locking yourself in a mental institution, or y'all see what the lady did on the last movie if y'all watched it. Either way, I can't even talk. Either way, you lost. Like, there's just no beating it. Anyways, let me know what y'all think down in the comments below, and I'll see y'all in the next one.